goal is to destroy Jews.
Tell them to leave your home. Put aside your compassion for now. Go sacrifice your son.
Right.
There are innocents there. How could you, right? Humanitarian crisis. And
So, but where's the wisdom? What do you think kind of maybe where these failures were or have been? And what do you think Israeli technology can do to make sure that we can properly defend ourselves?
I don't think that our reputation was damaged. I think just on a logistical level, like half the country's in the army now, so like people are losing their team. That's the bottom line. Obviously, for years, for a decade, this country is going to start, have to figure out what happened on October 7th. How did they manage to do that? And, there's a lot of different factors, obviously, but there's definitely a technological factor here. Like the intelligence was a colossal failure. And again, we're going to have to figure out why that is, but there's for sure technological element here. That's first of all. Second of all, there's the disinformation online, the misinformation thing, the bots thing. Like there are easy ways, not easy, but there are technological ways to overcome this. War was brought upon us. We weren't prepared. So, the tech ecosystem, it is so beautiful what's happening right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you know about Yizhar Shai?
No.
Okay,
sure.
So Yizhar Shai was a tech investor who became a Chaber Knesset, a parliament member, and then he went back to being a tech investor. First of all, the most awesome dude in the world, but unfortunately his son was killed in the war.
Yeah.
And so he announced an unbelievable thing that for every casualty that we have in this war, we are going to build a startup in the next 12 months. So he has committed to building 1,400 startups. He's gotten together the best founders, the best investors. He's really going to do this. Like this isn't just like, we're trying to. No, he's actually going to. He has like a real initiative. You want to know what Israeli tech is? You want to know what Israeli resilience is? That's Israeli resilience. This guy lost his son. Instead of drowning in sorrow, and which everyone would understand, no one would judge him.
Right. So last night I was interviewing Natan Levy, the Israeli UFC fighter, and we were talking about the growth of anti-Semitism and everything, and how it used to be the exact opposite just a few years ago. And especially in the UFC, there's a lot of genocidal calls within UFC fighters.
It's crazy.
It's insane, and they don't do anything about it. But he said what they hate is that, and he's also talked about white nationalists, whatever, white racists too, that they hate seeing a strong Jew.
Yeah.
And now light, that they will see our light is our strength. They curse us, we'll get stronger, and that will be their punishment. Right. I mean, and they'll have to deal with our strength.
I ask myself on a daily basis, like, why? Why do they hate us? Like, it doesn't make any sense. The Jews have done nothing bad in this. We're only good.
Right.
Why do they hate us? It doesn't make any sense. We know in Judaism that there's an actual, rule.
Right.
The non-Jews hate the Jews. That's just the way it is. Like,
right.
There's no logic, there's no reason, it's just the way it is. It's crazy, but like in every generation, anti-Semitism takes on a new face. And in our generation, it's anti-Zionism. Oh, it's just anti-Zionism. Like, and again, I don't know if you want to go into this, but like that sentence,
go
anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Are you freaking kidding me right now? Like, Zionism is the most core belief to Judaism.
These individuals are anti-Semites by default. And then they just parrot what they hear.
Right.
So to bring back to tech, large language models, like OpenAI or Grok now, whatever, it was fascinating because I was thinking about the intelligence of the human being, right? How intelligent are we? We create our own thoughts and all that. And I was thinking, if we're able to call this intelligence, all it is saying it's just picking up a lot of repetition, and that it's seeing in language, and it's spitting it back to us, and it comes off as intelligent. And we each think, like these idiots that say anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, there is no intelligence there. They just hear, they read, and then they just spit it back out. It's just like the language models. And so I was thinking there's some kind of parallel here where what we perceive as intelligence, like human, like brain, like critical thinking intelligence, it's not. It's just parroting of what's already been inputted into you, whether it's a language model or they're doing it because they're watching the BBC or CNN or other anti-Semitic.
But the analogy, while I understand it fails at one place, and that is that human beings do have intelligence. Let's look at the most foundational principles of this war. Like, people around the world, like, the most foundational, what are they saying? Like, genocide. Genocide? Really?
But they don't know what that word means.
No, but dude, again, there's subjective opinion and then there's fact. The Palestinian population has grown by hundreds of percentages. Hundreds. Like, genocide? We were freaking in Gaza yesterday with our tanks protecting the Gazans from Hamas. Genocide? So, like, you could say whatever you want, but like, if you're a human being with a brain, you would actually look at the facts. They have access to the knowledge. What they're doing is they're taking their preconceived notions or their pre-hatred of Jews and just, look, here's a comfortable excuse. Let's call it genocide. But it's not that they don't know the facts. They don't want to know the facts. So, at the end of the day, it's a scary time for Jews outside of Israel. And don't get me wrong. Like, I understand the risks in Israel. Obviously, October 7th was the worst tragedy since the Holocaust for the Jews. But, at the end of the day, in Israel, we are in the hands of our government, and how we retaliate, how we respond is up to us. Whereas in the States, a guy got beat to death in LA for, in a protest, pro-Israel protest.
An old Jew.
My point is, in Israel, we are in control of our own fate. At the end of the day, we in Israel will be okay. We will win this. Please God, obviously it's in God's hands. But I don't think anyone debates or has any doubts that we're gonna win this and we're gonna eliminate Hamas from this planet. And the big question is, the amount of pain and suffering we're gonna have to endure until we get there. And I hope it's minimal. But we lost 35 soldiers already since we went in.
Yeah.
So for them, we've killed 15,000 terrorists, right? Yeah. For them, 35 people, it's nothing. And the world likes to make that, you only 35 people, which is the most morally bankrupt claim in you need more dead Jews for you to justify the war? 600,000 people died in World War II, innocent civilians. That to me, if you'd say to me, sum up this war in one word, that word is hypocrisy.
Right.
The level of hypocrisy.
That's going to be every war that Jews are involved.
Just 2 days ago, again, Israel's warning Gazans to leave the south and go to northern Gaza. The north and go to southern Gaza, so that we can uproot, the Hamas infrastructure, right? And so, when they start to leave, what does Hamas do? They execute them because they don't want them leaving, right? So Israel pulls up with a tank, defends the Gazans against Hamas, risks our own soldiers so that they can leave safely. And what does freaking these anti-Semites say? Look at how they're forcing people to evacuate their homes under gunfire. Oh my God! The hypocrisy, the lies are at a level that I've never seen before. It's not even like subjective. Oh, that's your opinion. It's just blatant, objective, historical fabrications. Dude, it goes, again, we could talk about this for hours. You have a brain in your head. If you have a brain in your head, logic should be part of the way you think. Let me just tell you one thing. Yeah. If A causes B, okay? If A causes B, then logic dictates that if you remove A, B won't happen, right? That's just basic logic. If A causes B, exactly. So if A causes B and you remove A, then B should not have happened.
Right.
If occupation causes Palestinian terror, remove the occupation, there should be no terror. But forget remove. How about we go back to where there was no quote-unquote occupation? How about we go back before the establishment of the State of Israel? 1929. There's no establishment, there's no Israel. There's no occupation. Arabs massacred Jews in Hebron.
Yeah.
Why? So don't tell me it's the occupation. So this is basic logic that any person with a brain understands. But
the problem is I think you're focusing on the brain and not the heart and intentions.
Yeah.
Is that their logic is, I despise Jews.
Right. My
life mission is to destroy Jews.
Right.
What can I say? This is the effect. What can I cause to help bring my goal of the effect?
I got to tell you.
Therefore, the only logic that they have is the destruction of Jews. You said for some reason, spiritually in the Torah, nothing's ever changed thousands of years, is that non-Jews
hate Jews.
Will hate Jews. Yeah. We see this historically repeating itself. But their goal is to destroy Jews.
Yeah. What should be our narrative? Right, because we're a victim, you hate us is not a good narrative.
Oh, no, it's the opposite.
No, I know. So hold on. There's a couple of options, right? We're a victim is not a good narrative. The West is next. You should be terrified. Not a great narrative. Both of those are true, but and then I ask the fundamental. Maybe no matter what our narrative is going to be, it won't help anyway. So why even bother? And then I tell myself, no, there are people on the fence, whatever. There is a lot going on behind the scenes in terms of Israel advocacy. There are groups, there are whatever, and I'm part of many of them. But at the end of the day, I don't think that there is a fundamental agreement about what our narrative should be. Whereas our enemies, they have their narrative down pat.
Right.
Look what they're doing. They're oppressing us. They're genocide. What is our narrative? And so, from a marketing perspective, this is something that I think when this war is over, and I'm going to be part of it, but we're going to get together, you'll be part of it too, some of the brightest minds in Israel, and we're going to sit and we're going to be like, okay, when, not if, because it's always, when it happens next, what is our narrative? What is the story we're telling the world?
The narrative is, in my opinion, Indigenous justice. And I think those are two. I think we lose our justice when we trade terrorists or anyone for even hostages. We lose our justice. When we say we want peace, so we're going to leave our own land for thousands of years, we lose our justice.
You're forgetting one thing, dude, and this is so fundamental, and that is that, again, the Jewish nation, right? We have many characteristics, but we are described in Jewish scripture as a compassionate nation. We are a compassionate nation, and so, compassion is a very good thing. But when you use compassion to the excess, you use it excessively, or you use it where it doesn't apply, that's when destruction happens, right? And again,
I never said the word compassion.
No, I understand, but let's give them land. Oh, we have to do everything to bring our prisoners back.
Right. Our strategy is always immediately what makes us feel better. There's no long-term strategy. The lack of long-term strategy in Israel, we haven't seen it for decades.
We're not strategic thinkers.
Well, we are in every way, but national.
Not really. Are we strategic in tech?
I
No,
think
I don't think
actually,
so.
that's a good point.
We're not.
Here's an opportunity.
That's
right.
why
Yeah.
That's why we do what we do.
Right.
Because we bring strategy.
Right. You're talking about we're indigenous. We were always here. There's always a Jewish presence here.
Right.
I'm sorry, I got to bring in
The Torah,
or spiritual or history.
Where's
It's
our
all-
Jewish pride?
It's all the same, but it's history too.
Right,
Jewish
right.
history
So-
and lessons learned. So if we're not, then where's the strategy if we're not willing to look back to learn?
Right.
And so I think that's part of the problem is that we have this thing is that I'm embarrassed to talk about Jewish history. I'm embarrassed to talk about Jewish spirituality. I'm embarrassed to talk about that we're one nervous system.
Yeah.
Like why?
I'll tell you why. Because Western civilization, specifically wokeism, emphasizes the future and leaves the past out. We don't want the past. I mean, again, I obviously agree with you, but I just want to say that, like, and you know how every Friday I sign off for Shabbat and I posted like a Torah piece, whatever. And I always try to give like a lesson that's not only relevant to like observant Jews, because my audience is not observant. So it's usually just a generic message of leadership or whatever. And I got to tell you, like, I'm not like a voodoo kind of Jew. But like, you don't realize this. Nobody realizes. I don't really talk about it. But every single Friday, that thing that I write just lands in my head. Like, I don't know where it comes from. It's like it's unbelievable. For 4 years I've been doing this already. Just every Friday, boom, I get this idea. So this past week, again, it just popped into my head. But like, we're in Genesis, the book of Genesis, and Abraham is given many tests by God. Many tests, right? Leave your home, sacrifice your son, all of it, right? Sodom. He has all kinds of different tests. And, the obvious question that everyone asks is like, how could God tell him to kill his son? Like, how could God do that to him? He promised him that Isaac is going to be the future of the Jewish people, and now he's going to tell him to sacrifice it? That's nuts. And how does he tell him to leave his home and leave his family? Like, what is the underlying, what is going on here? What is really going on here? And in this week's portion, or last week's portion, there's the whole story of Sodom, which is, God says there's this city that's just full of corruption and evil, and I'm going to destroy it. And Abraham argues with God and says, maybe there's some righteous people there, you really shouldn't destroy it. And he argues, and God listens. But at the end, there aren't righteous people there, and he destroys the city. But 2 people survive, Lot and Lot's wife. And they're walking out of the city. Lot's wife turns around.
They were told, don't turn around.
Don't turn around. She turns around and she becomes a statue of salt.
Right.
So, like, you got to ask, what is going on here? Like, this is just weird. Like, what is the story? What is the underlying story? And again, I just made this up. I didn't see this anywhere, but to me, it makes complete sense, which is, God looks at Abraham and says, all right, what is Abraham's most fundamental characteristic? Abraham was a man of charity, of welcoming guests into his home, of being kind, right? Being gentle. God says, I'm going to test you. I'm going to take your most fundamental characteristic and I'm going to see if you know how to put that aside when it shouldn't be applied. Go leave your home. And Abraham's like, what, my family, go leave your home. I'm God and I'm telling you to leave your home. Put aside your compassion for now. Go sacrifice your son.
Right,
He's saying to him, Abraham, listen, I get it. You're a compassionate guy. But I'm God, and I'm telling you to do something, and I want to see if you believe in me or not. Put aside your compassion. And then in the story of Sodom, Avram's like, listen, I'm a compassionate guy. Don't destroy a city. God's like, he listens, and at the end, he does it. And then here's the kicker, right? Why does she turn into a statue of salt? Like, what's that about? Made it up. I don't know if this is true or not, but it makes sense to me. She's walking out, and she feels that compassion. She turns around, she goes, oh my God, there are innocents there. How could you, right? Humanitarian crisis in Sodom, right? How could you do that? She turns around in compassion. And God makes her salt. Why? What's salt? Think of the characteristics of salt.
Right.
Salt can make something beautiful. Compassion is beautiful. But if you use it in the wrong place,
wrong.
you put salt in your cup of Coke, that's nasty.
Right.
Or you put too much salt in, you use compassion too much,
Right.
It's destructive.
Right.
So, all the stories are, you're a compassionate guy, I'm God, I'm going to put you to the test and see if you could put your compassion aside and apply it when it applies and not apply it when it shouldn't be applied. But the problem is we're compassionate people and we don't know how to differentiate between when it should be used and not.
Our goal here is to maybe unpack something, get inside of brains,
Right.
and maybe people can take something with it and
Right.
at their level and build on our ideas that some are good, some are flawed, or
Right.
some are terrible,
Right.
some are brilliant.
So
right?
I don't know. I don't think anyone knows how October 7th happened. We don't know. We're going to know one day. We don't know. I'm not pointing fingers. Like, there's only one person to blame here, and that's Hamas. Like, there's no, it happened because of this, it happened because of that. And that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that if you'd asked me, based on the zero knowledge that I have, just philosophically, how did it happen? It happened because in the last round of violence with Islamic Jihad, Hamas sat it out. And Hamas has been relatively quiet. And we, as a compassionate people, were like, oh, Hamas, they're our buddies now. Let's just leave them alone. Like,
Right.
And they're accumulating sophisticated weapons from Iran, and we're just sitting there. Like, dude.
Right. So, but where's the wisdom?
Okay.
That's
So I'm saying, like, these
compassion will blind you.
Right. These soldiers who were looking into Gaza, they saw activity on the border. They're like, They apparently, I don't know if this is true. Apparently, they reported it, and like the government or the political side was like, they're just they're having picnics. Like, dude, they're doing something on the border there, and like we're compassionate people. It's like they'll be fine. Here, and again, it goes even more. It goes even deeper than that. And this is, to me, if you'd ask me, the deepest, the real, most fundamental problem with the way the West views radical Islam is a very simple thing. We in the West have certain core values, certain core things that we know to be true because we live in the West. For example, if I treat you with dignity, you're going to treat me with dignity.
Right.
Just like basic, obviously, that's just how humans behave. But that's not how radical Islam behaves.
Correct.
You can treat them as well as you want. They want you dead because you're an infidel. It doesn't work. It's like, oh, let's give them land. And they're like, we don't want land. We want dead Jews. Like, no, they don't mean it.
So wisdom, compassion would say, oh, they're like me, let's bring in these people in mass. They just want a better life. There's that. Because they think if they were to migrate willingly, it would be economically for a better life, or maybe they found someone they loved on the other side of the world, so they want to go join them, or maybe a job opportunity, whatever. But these people are anti-Semitic in mass, will destroy their country, like anti-Semites did when it was grown within Germany.
Right. I don't know about you, but I've never had more moral clarity than I have right now. Like I can't. Usually, generally speaking, in all conflicts around the world, there's generally somewhat of a two-sided equation. Somewhat. The other side has some legitimacy. Like there's some. And after October 7th, when that happened, I'm a cup half full kind of guy, and I'm like, okay, at least, the world's going to stand by Israel now. Like, there's no way in the world that a human being with a brain and a heart will side with Hamas. That's not an option. Like, I don't see a scenario in which that happens. And here we are with the world siding. It's insane. So for me, it's like I have crystal clear moral clarity. It's like there's good and there's evil, and if you don't see this, then you are evil. Like, if you side with Hamas, let's just say it as it is. In any way, shape, or form, if you do not side with Israel in this war, you are supporting murder and rape.